Part two. Part two of the Judds. Y'all, we were talking about on my Facebook how it's like easy for me to cry, like at commercials or movies, television shows, just about anything. But especially if it's something that I'm really, that I've invested a long time into, like, if you watch the docu-series, I don't know if it's 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever, it's a long time. You really get a lot of information. So you really start to relate, to the characters, the stories, the incidents, the things that happened, the trauma, um, and knowing the relationship between those two and knowing what happened and watching it, after the fact, like after she's already passed and, you're watching something that took place years ago and they didn't know when they were doing it that, that she was going to be gone when she was going to be. I mean, clearly, that everybody's going to die, but you don't know when, you know what I mean? And they were just saying things that were so, like poignant, so important, so fitting to what's going on now. So like if you watch it now, it's like they said all the right things that they needed. They did everything they needed to. You know how like when somebody goes, you want to be like you hope that you've said your proper goodbyes and that, you hope that they're in a good space to go to the next place. You know what I mean? Like you want them to be all set up. Are you good? You've talked, everything's good. Um, I feel like they did that in the docu-series. So so that afterwards there wouldn't be any regrets about I wish I would have said this, I wish I would have told her this. I wish she would have heard me when I said this. You know what I mean? They got all of that out. And so, for that part, I was grateful for them, you know what I mean? She'll be able to look back on that and watch that. And then, that I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a bonus or a curse that you get to have so much footage that you get to watch so many pictures, so many shows, so many concerts, um, where a lot of people don't get that. Some people don't even get pictures because, God forbid, something happened. Somebody didn't keep their hands on the pictures, or there was a fire, or whatever went on. A lot of people don't get to um, see so much of their history and see so much of their memories well. It's different now with social media because everybody records everything. Although I don't know that it'll be around for us to grab if we want to grab it in the future. I'm kind of hoping these videos stick around so that after I'm gone, whether it's like tomorrow, 5 years from now, or whatever, that somebody will learn from whatever experience I've gained or whatever knowledge I've gained that I would like to spew back to you. I hope somebody can take advantage of that in the future or learn something from, mistakes that I've made, um, or learned lessons that I've learned one way or another. With the Judds, I was so sad watching the video last night. I mean, it just tore me up. I got my tissues already just in case I was going to need to use them for our conversation today about mental health. Um, it's happening frequently. Um, Not that we haven't lost celebrities over the years from, silly mistakes that they made. Um, but we've also lost a lot this way. We've lost a lot because they had physical limitations that were headed their way that they chose not to deal with. And I reckon that's their choice. I'm still dealing in my mind um, with, taking your own life. I haven't, it's not that I haven't. I mean, I know that they're still going to go to heaven, and I know that it just, mm, that's so hard. It's such a hard subject. And I know a lot of people post these things on their Facebook. You see them. Um, if you ever need to call someone, uh, I lost someone to, I don't know if I can say the S word on here. Um, and they're always like, call me if you need to. But there's people all around you. Like, you don't need a big shovel to hit you over the head to see what's going on around you if you just kind of open up your eyes. Because I can clearly see it everywhere. I mean, if you just pay attention a little bit, you can tell with somebody's mood, the way somebody looks or doesn't look. If you take the time to pay attention, you can see people around you that are in trouble, and you can ask them. You can say something. You can say, "How you doing? How's it going?" Um, you can start out with something just, really basic, and see where they go from there. You might be able to ease them into it if you're more in a private situation, like ask them if they want to go to lunch or somewhere where they might feel safe to discuss what they want to discuss. Maybe they can't talk about what they want to talk about on the phone, or they can't talk about it through text. I mean, unless you've been in these situations, I don't know that you would think with the same mind and have the same perspective as someone who's, damaged or in these situations. Clearly, there's a problem. I mean, it's just like if you have a limp, or your shoulder or your elbow or your finger or whatever doesn't, work properly or whatever, it's the same thing. You've got issues in your head. There's, memories, traumas, experiences, people that have been in the military, wars. And now we have so many people that are surviving so many situations they shouldn't be surviving, especially in the United States. These post traumatic situations, like, uh, I'm thinking, from like a psychology perspective, from everything that I'm gathering and paying attention to, especially in the last couple of years since the pandemic, that I think sometimes if you go through really shocking things, like, which in other words, like a trauma, depending on the level or depending on the number of times that it happens, because sometimes these situations are happening and, little girls are getting, messed with daily, nightly, multiple times a day, whatever it is. So that trauma is, reoccurring frequently. It's not just one. So in situations like that, I think sometimes you cannot actually process it and deal with it. And you experience and process little pieces of it as you get older, maybe in your 20s, maybe in your 30s, maybe in your 40s or 50s, or, whenever you slow down enough to, kind of hear the voices in your head. I think that you really don't get to finish processing what happened to you until years later. If it's, like I said, like extremely traumatic, you know what I mean? Or repeated repeated trauma, um, or something like so horrific that you can't possibly, you know, it's hard for me to deal with just all of the crime, all the things that have been happening lately, the big difference between like now and 1977, like the the way people are so quick to be mean to each other, um, the way that people are mean on social media that don't even know you, the way that people can reach out from social media right into your house and disturb your household. Like, there's so many ways to mess with people mentally now, and we don't really like to talk about that part. We are all about how you doing, like meaning, and we mean how do you feel physically? Like, are you good? Um, did you wake up, feeling good today or whatever? We don't ever, I do, but I'm a different kind of person. When I ask questions, I'm always, wanting to go a little bit deeper, but we've got to somehow make it more like not such a taboo thing to talk about. Clearly, clearly, I mean, if I wanted to pull up the statistics, it would be mind boggling of the mental health issues that we're dealing with now. And it doesn't have to be that there's something, like, because there can be all different types of issues, right? You can have physical things from when you were born, like there's like the connective tissue isn't working, something that, these wires aren't meeting, or these wires are firing off too much, could be something like that. Or it could be that, something happened to you when you were 3 years old, or when you were 10 years old, or when you were 15 years old, or something happened to you as an adult in your early adulthood, or something happened to you yesterday that you have to deal with. These things are valid in the way that they affect your life and really need to be dealt with more seriously because they affect everything else. I mean, if we look just at prisons alone, would you say that half the people in there have a mental health issue? I would. Um, why don't we have more facilities for people who have issues but don't have $2,000 a week to deal with their issue? You know what I mean? Like, we are, this has got to become more commonplace, because what's going on now is a breakdown. Like, is like, I like to think of myself as strong-minded. Like, when I think of everything that I've been through and everything that I've made it through and everything that I continue to make it through on a daily basis, I consider myself pretty strong. So when I start feeling like, "Phew, I don't know if I can take this much longer," then I wonder, what anybody else is thinking. Like, my God, if it's this bad that I'm noticing it, phew, what do you think that we can do? Can we have more people step up and talk about this stuff? I mean, domestic violence in the the Johnny Depp trial, we're hearing how, just the slightest of, mm, these arguments they have, they're not like putting each other in hospitals, right? They're not like knocked down, drag out, pulling knives out, like, you know what I'm saying? They're not. There's some domestic battle going on, but the little, my point is as little as that is compared to some of the domestic violent battles that go on, it's still psychologically damaged her, him, her family, his family, their friends, their bodyguards, like, everybody got mentally touched by this. All of those things that they said, like the rhymes or whatever that started when I was a kid, like sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, and all that. We've got to change all of that. We've got to start making some new rhymes, some new songs. This cannot continue. That we have got to pick up on the manners and, bringing back the polite and please and thank you. And when someone opens the door for you and you say thank you, they should say you're welcome. Like we are so detached from each other in what's happening. You know, Amber was testifying to something that was happening when they were traveling down the road together and they had other people in the car with them. Something kind of traumatic happened, and everyone in the car, she said, froze. Nobody said anything, nobody did anything. And I thought, that is exactly what the problem is. That's what's going on in subways, on the street, when you're driving down the road, in businesses. Everybody's like, I don't see that. That is not happening. How do we get people to get more involved and start realize what's happening? It is not just your family and your child and as long as we're good, we're all good. No, no. That's not what Jesus said. First of all, if you're not a Christian, if you're not a Christian, I guess, but if you're a Christian, you should be worried about all your brothers and sisters down here, all of them, even if they're not in your family. I get so tired of hearing this, as long as me and my family are good. Well, yeah, it's also nice. It's also easy to be nice to people that are nice to you. There's no challenge in being nice to somebody that's nice to you. There's no challenge in loving somebody that loves you so easily. We, where did it start to be like, it's just me and my family and the rest of the world can kiss my butt? Like, when did that start? Because when I grew up, families were important, but so were friends, and so were neighbors, and so were, the local whoever, the local teachers, the local bankers, the local post office person, the local whoever. Like, you were concerned and talked to and made sure everybody was all right. That was in your vicinity or that you experienced that day. When you go to a restaurant and you're oh so worried about the person that you're eating with, across at the restaurant, you're worried about them. What if the waiter or waitress that comes up to you is clearly not, like they're having a hard time that day? Do you say anything to them? Do you try to help them, ease their mind? Do you check to see if they're okay? Or are you like, whatever, that's a waiter or a waitress, I'm just worried about who I came with? Because I think that's the problem. Nobody's worried about anybody else. But see, even if directly that's not your family is going to someday get in that taxi with that person, someday get in the plane with that person, someday get into a movie theater with what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter that it's just your family that you're taking care of, because your family has to go out into the world at some point and other people are out there. So, maybe the waiter that you weren't worried about, that you could have spent some time helping, maybe that waiter, when your child goes out somewhere later, is the one that freaks out and does some movie theater stuff or church. The fact that they would go into a church is just, it's like all boundaries have been crossed at this point. It's just like when you're in a relationship and you set up a bunch of lines and boundaries and you're like, okay, do not cross this line. Do not cross this line. Do not cross this line. all of them have been crossed. Russia is putting children on the missiles that they're sending into the Ukraine. Who does that? In what world does this happen? All of this stuff that we're just watching one episode of the news of what's going on in the Ukraine should be enough to drive everyone a little bit mad in more ways than one. Like, why are we not caring? We're gonna have to go to part 3. Part 3.